Hi, Shauna.
Hey, Phil, how are you?
Good. I am excited for this. You are the first ever talk of substance. So I think it will be
Yay.
good stuff. And for those who are watching or listening, I'll just say I'm not doing what I do for our company. I don't have a value prop for this. They're just fun conversations. And I'm so excited to get your input. So it should be great.
Thanks for having me. I can't wait
Cool.
to jump into the conversation.
Yeah. So just to get started, for everybody who's watching or listening, can you just introduce yourself? I know we've done videos before, but some things have changed, right? So talk to me about what you're doing these
Yeah,
days.
absolutely. Yeah. So Shauna Mace, head of practice management at SEI. So I am very lucky to have a job and to do the work that I absolutely love to do, which is helping people and more importantly, businesses, advisor businesses grow. So as part of working at SEI, where I come in is really around technology and investments, yes, helps your business run, but how do we actually help you as a business owner work on your business, not just in your business? So we're really dedicated to providing advice, best practices, support, communities, all the things business owners, we both know from being business owners, you need to continue to make progress and succeed in the way that you want to succeed.
Yeah, I love it, and I'm excited. And I have a mini value prop around these talks of substance, which is we'll talk about business, we'll talk about life, and just sort of apply these principles everywhere. Because I think you just have some great principles and great thinking around just the topic of growth. And as a business owner, I think I was talking to you a couple of weeks ago. Like this is something I think about every single day. We all think about it.
Mhm.
So just excited to hear your perspective. So um, just to start, Shauna, I'll start with like a fun question, which is totally outside all business, but you're a parent, right? So every day you're
I
tasked with
am.
helping little ones grow, right?
Yes.
Which I have to do too. Does any of this intersect? Like, do you apply any of your principles around growth with kids? Do you have any tips for me?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. If you're listening, if you're listening, I'm nodding a lot right now.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. So yeah, I have 7 and 10-year-old girls. So I've learned a ton myself from being a parent and from them around growth. And absolutely it applies to the consulting work and
yeah.
the growth work we do. So specifically, what I found is that when it comes to growth, and I'm thinking of financial advisors or business owners,
Yeah.
when it comes to growth, oftentimes it's easy. The easy part is coming up with the goals. The easy part is defining the plan or the strategy. The hard part is taking the action. It's getting them to do the things that, they say they're going to do or
Mhm.
that you want them to do. And it's just like being a parent. It's very easy to come up with the chore system or to come up with the routine or to have the things that you just expect. You brush your teeth at night, but getting your kids to actually take action is a very very different challenge. And I think what I found is just like in parenting, coaching, really understanding and getting people to internally have some motivation or getting them to buy in, getting them to learn
Mhm.
these lessons and believe is so powerful. And that's why I like to incorporate a lot of the coaching into the work that we do, because it's not, consulting is typically giving answers, where coaching is trying to get someone to kind of acknowledge the answer on their own and own that and have autonomy over that thing. And I think as a parent, what I found is I can impact change and get my kids to do what I want them to do if they believe it's on their own free will. I think very similar to business owners and advisors and just people in general. When you buy in, when you're committed, when you articulate your commitment, when it comes from a place internally, much more, you have a much higher ability to impact change, to get them to actually do the things, to take the actions that matter. So
I think
absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I think that's super smart and a good parenting tip for me. We have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. The 1-year-old, no chance, right? There's no understanding there, but she's great. The 3-year-old, I'm starting to see that. Like I've been relatively unstructured and she's a little bit crazy overall. But as we've started to like talk her through understanding, like, here's what's going to happen. Here's why we do this. It only goes so far with the 3-year-old, but you're right. Like a little bit of background, a little bit of like just having wrapped your head around things, less surprises. We 50% of the time get her doing what we want. So it
Yeah,
doesn't
well,
work, right?
like giving choices is such a
Yeah.
powerful thing, right? Giving someone autonomy over choice, or
Yeah.
asking questions, or understanding where they're coming from. My
Yeah.
7-year-old is the one that's a little more headstrong, and we can't tell her what to do. It just doesn't work. So,
Yeah.
but we can get her to do all sorts of things if she wants to do it, and if she wants to do it, it's something we can influence.
And if not, I learned this from you. You just give them chocolate
You
and they'll.
just bribe them with food. Yeah, exactly. We can all be bribed with something.
Yeah, we were once on a sales, like years before your SEI time. We were on a call together, and I remember your daughter walked in, right, and you were like, "I will give you chocolate if you leave with it."
I absolutely did.
It was like three
You
years
know
ago.
what?
It was
Sometimes
funny.
you have to do what you have to
You
do.
got to do what you got to do. So where did your passion for growth come from? Like, is it something from your childhood, Shauna? Is it from your early business days? Like, where does it come from?
It's a good question. I don't know exactly. What I do know is that I was raised in a household with two very hardworking parents
Hmm.
who really made their own future. I mean, they didn't come from money. They were both the first in their family to graduate from college. So very hardworking, very much kind of took responsibility for their outcomes.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of it, is just kind of this learned behavior, internal behavior around achieving, like wanting to strive. And I think the other part of it is also been, I am just fascinated with, when I say growth, I don't mean like traditional growth, just assets. It could be that, but it's
Yeah.
like progress, satisfaction, accomplishment, like these ideas. And I love learning about individuals who have done it really well, and
Hmm.
learning about their journey. And kind of what I've learned from those stories is oftentimes it's never easy. And that's the thing. That's the interesting part. The people that are most successful or happiest or kind of accomplished typically have these really interesting backstories. And it made me realize, like, I have the ability as an individual, you have the ability as an individual to kind of accomplish, I don't want to say anything, but a whole lot. And that's if you have the will and desire. And then there's obviously some, like, a plan and taking the action. There's some best practices to help you get there. So it's just been curiosity of mine for years and years and years. And I've always followed it. And I'm really glad I have, because it's led me to where I am today, where I get to help. I just absolutely get so much joy out of seeing other people realize their own potential and seeing the development and growth. I think the last point I'd make here is, so I was kind of nurtured in this environment. It's
Mhm.
just a curiosity and a passion of mine. But I also think that when we're not growing, there's that idea, when you're not growing, you're dying, right? So
Yeah.
I do think if we define growth more loosely as development, as progress, as learning, we are wired to do that as humans. And so it feels really good. Like, I love being in a constant state of development, it makes me happy. And I love seeing other people go through it. I think they also feel pride and progress and gain confidence through that process. So I just think it's part of who we are as humans. So I
Yeah.
love that I get to help people through that.
Yeah, my happiness has always been tethered to growth. Like when I feel like I'm not growing, to your point, like I feel like I'm dying inside. Like
Yeah.
it hurts me. So it's always been, how do I find more ways at that? Something else I want to say about what you said. You said your parents always worked really hard. Like they sort of, they went through some trials to get growth and be successful. And it's funny, like growth is hard. It's not easy. Like I almost liken it to exercise. Like when
Yeah.
you exercise, it's hard to get stronger, right? Like you have
You
to
have to
put
tear
yourself
your
through.
muscles. Yeah,
Yeah, you have to
literally,
tear your
to build
muscles for
them.
them to grow back stronger. It's funny, like I even think about, I had an opportunity in my family to join my father's business, which would have been a great opportunity. But I always said, like, I sort of want to try to make it for myself, which is why I launched my business. Cause like I wanted things to be harder, but that's really hard. Like, but growth doesn't come easily,
Mhm.
and I feel like I've learned so much because I put myself through pain and continue to do it, which is crazy, but like we do it because we want to grow, I guess. Right. So
I think so. And I think that most people, when you start to see people who are complacent or not,
yeah.
maybe not happy, it's because they're not challenging themselves. Like, we need that as human beings. We absolutely need that. Our brains need that. It definitely feels good.
Yeah. So it's funny, and I have a bunch of questions, but we'll see where the conversation goes. But like, we all stall out on growth at some point, right? And like, it sometimes sneaks up on you, like you
Yeah.
didn't even realize it was coming. Like, are there ways to keep growing, right? And to sort of avoid the stall out, whether it's professionally, personally, business wise? Like, are there things you think about there that you'd like to share?
Absolutely. So it's interesting you bring that up about stalling out. So I'm doing a series of small group advisor workshops right now,
Hmm.
really around business planning and goals to outcomes, driving the right outcomes. And one of the questions I ask at the beginning of the participants is, the last question I ask is, what is the thing or things that may slow you down or stall you in your progress? And I think typically, so what I found that's coming up a lot is lack of focus.
Hmm.
It's lack of confidence in my plan. It's just getting too busy. Busyness is a big one. It's interesting because all of these things are things we can control.
Yeah.
There's lots of things we can't control, but these are things we can control. So I do think there's lots of reasons why we stall out or fail. I think some of it is fear. I think some of it's that emotional stuff. It's the discomfort, which is frankly, our brain is meant to protect us. Our
Yeah.
subconscious is largely in control. It controls 80% or plus of what kind of our actions, our feelings, our emotions. And its job is to protect us, right? Out in the wild, its job was to protect us because we wanted to stay alive. It's a different world today. So I think those subconscious feelings and fears certainly are part of it that slow us down to keep us safe. But I also think that some of it is it's just the inability to know exactly what we need to do to make progress. And again, that goes back to this idea of like, there's so much we can control.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we
Yeah.
at least can focus there, maybe we can't control our subconscious, but we can focus on the things we can control. You increase your chances of not stalling out
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. I do think too that sometimes we get to a point you mentioned it can sneak up on you. We sometimes are climbing the wrong mountain or hill.
Mhm,
Like we
mhm,
start to get
mhm.
misaligned. It's not so much fear. It's like I'm going after something I don't really want anymore.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes hard to acknowledge that.
Yeah. That's interesting. There's a power couple I know, and they're like super intentional and very successful individuals. Every year, they take stock of like their life
I
and
love
where they
that.
are to keep track. He's like a powerhouse CEO, and she's right
Yeah.
there with it. And like, and they do that. And I think just like that act of being intentional about it is really powerful. Because to your point, like you can grow in all sorts of directions and things can take paths where like you suddenly realize you're not happy. Like we all see that in our careers often. Like you
Yeah.
sort of grow and you get promoted, but you don't really know where you're landing. And then it's like you find yourself in a situation where you may not be as happy. So do you think people need to like take stock more frequently of how they're growing and where they are?
Absolutely. So yes. So I do coaching. So I'm a certified high performance coach, and I try to integrate some of those coaching attributes into the work. And so, specifically, a tool that we use with advisors we call it a business audit. It's essentially a coaching. You could do it for life coaching. I know if you do life planning, it could be a tool as well, where you literally rate. We have 7 areas in a business. It could be in life. The wheel of life is a coaching
Yeah.
tool. So these different areas in either business or life, and you rate where you are today, and then where you want to be in the future,
Mm.
and you look where those what the biggest deltas or gaps are. And then the next most important question is, where there are those big gaps and you have your future number, whatever it is, let's say it's a 5. Well, what does a 5 mean to you?
Yeah.
Starting to gain clarity, define what that is. I think it's certainly something that I do. I do it all the time through journaling, but
Mm.
I think at least annually, it's a great exercise to do, because that way you can self-correct, right?
Yeah. 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 It's interesting. I would also curious for your thoughts on the emotional side of it all, which you sort of hit on. And again, I share with you, which sort of inspired my thought of this talk. Like, as a business owner, growth for me is actually really scary. Like, it's stressful, right? There's more people who work for the company. There's more responsibilities. There's more that comes with it. So, like, growth is a scary thing. And to your point, like that can hold people back. Are there ways you recommend sort of like overcoming the emotion, some of the fear that comes with growth? Like I really do believe there's some fear attached to it because it's
Yeah,
challenging yourself. It's
there
uncomfortable,
is fear.
unknown. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
there definitely is fear. I think the first thing is yes, there's lots of ways you can overcome it, or you can't. I don't want to say overcome, it's the wrong way. It's like that. You never heard the song "Going on a Bear Hunt"? And
no,
you
no.
can't, okay, there's a children's song of going on a bear hunt and they end up in like, there's a tall grass and there's mud and there's a river and it's like we can't go over it, we can't go under it, we have to go through it.
Right.
It's that idea. You have to, when it comes to this stuff, you do need to go through it. How do you get brave enough to go through it?
Hmm.
I think a lot of that, there's different. So certainly having a support system, right? Communities
Yeah.
and having the people around you that can help support you and cheer you on and say, like, you got this, you can do
Yeah.
this, you're going to be okay no matter what. So having the right support system, I think is really important. I think there's some level of competency that matters when it comes to confidence, right? Like you have more confidence when you have the skills and competency and experience. Once you go through it, you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. I could
Yeah.
do that again.
Right.
And so there's some level of like continuing to grow and develop yourself and especially going into something new, like maybe hiring, for example.
Yeah.
If you've never managed somebody, I would probably be talking to someone who's done that really well and start to think about gaining some of those skills. I really do think that support, um, competency, and then having a game plan. I keep coming back to
Yeah.
that, but having a plan, whether it works out or not, but having it is and knowing what you need to do or
Yeah.
worry about, and step by step, is, I think, gives you a little sense of control, which can
Yeah.
provide some security.
Yeah, I think it's also defining what you want to grow for, right? Like
Yeah,
I like, what are you
good
really
point.
passionate about? Like, I think you have to be, to your point, intentional about that. Like, people always ask me what size I want our business to be, and I actually don't have like a target size. I just want to build a great business and the growth will come. But like, that's what gets me excited and keeps us growing, is just that like passionate of building something. But I think you need to like envision that, like understand what you're growing
Yeah.
for, like have a North Star that you're growing towards, because it keeps you excited, it keeps you motivated, keeps you focused, right? So
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, and I'm interested actually to hear what you define a great business as for yourself. And I say, so clarity is actually the, if you high
yeah.
performance attributes, it
Yeah.
is the when you do coaching, it's the first attribute you
Hmm.
coach on is clarity, because it is
Hmm.
so important, that North Star. So
Hmm.
it definitely makes a lot of sense. So
Hmm.
what for you, what does being a great business, what does that look like?
I think of like, I love to care for people, so I want our people to be happy. So that's number one. Like it's funny, like I love, and all our employees will listen to this, I love giving raises, like what, but I love like just caring for people, like it's my favorite thing in the world. So like a business that cares for people, like there's something incredibly motivating for people about like having people have jobs, right? Like letting them take care of their families. Like there's magic to that, and just like the economics of all of it. Like great culture is really important to me. Like having a business that really like does business the right way, that's grounded in real principles, that frankly, like profit will come, but profit isn't the purpose, right? That's like purpose driven and believes in helping. And then just, a consistent great product and deliverable is always there. But like those are three things that, it's like happy people, great culture, great product are
Yeah.
three things. But the challenge is preserving that as you grow is like one of the
Yeah.
chief things, especially in professional services. Like it's not fully scalable. So it really starts with people, like having great people, attracting great people, caring for great people, because that's what gives you scalability overall. So there's some challenges that come with growth too, right?
Yeah, it's so true. I was just talking to a couple women advisors this morning, and one of them is growing very quickly
Hmm.
and she's loving it. But then she's kind of like, I just want to help everyone. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, but
Yeah.
you can't help everyone, like you don't lose track of yourself and your team. And because I've seen that we'll call it unhealthy growth, maybe, of
Yeah.
like you kind of lose control of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, challenge you to think about how can you continue to serve your
Yeah.
clients and
Yeah.
prospective clients and still serve yourself and to your point, your team,
Yeah.
because you don't,
Yeah.
it has to be both, not one or the other.
Yeah. I've always been focused on like controlled growth, because if you grow too fast, like, and you don't grow, you try to keep it like predictable, because fits and spurts don't always lead to good, like your service can't
Right.
catch up, right? Your
Yeah.
product can't catch up. Like you need to, and it's funny, we live in a society that's all like, I made this much money off of Bitcoin, whatever. Like today, it's an instant gratification culture. And you can't think that way. It's really like the long-term steady growth that you want ultimately. I
Yeah.
think, I don't know if you agree with that, but
No, I do agree with that. I think being thoughtful about what growth
yeah.
means to you, yeah, today and in the future, and what the impacts, good, bad, are really important when it comes to that business planning as a business owner.
Do you think about personal and professional growth differently? And I should say personal and professional, personal and business growth differently. Like if we're trying to grow a business or if we're trying to grow ourselves, is it one and the same playbook, Shauna, or are there major differences between the two?
I mean, I think it depends on how you define growth. So
Yeah.
that's a big part of it, right? So some
Yeah.
people define growth as in scalability, like it's efficiency, or some people define growth as the health of the business. Some people define it as an asset, a revenue number they want to meet.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it does start with how you do define growth.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's one. I think, are there differences? I think they kind of, I mean, there's a symbiotic relationship between them. Like
Yeah.
you need to grow. In order to grow a business, you do need to continue to grow as people, as a
Yeah.
leader, individuals. Like you can't not be growing and developing people and then expect the business to just grow.
Yeah.
It doesn't, at least I've never seen it work like that. Maybe there are places it works like that. So yeah,
Right.
I think there's a symbiotic relationship between the
Between
two.
the two. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
related. Yeah, it's interesting. So if you're talking to someone who's maybe listening to this, who's on personal side, sort of feels like I've stalled out or I want to grow more, like I want more growth for myself personally, what would you tell them to do? Like, what would your what's the first step they need to take in your opinion?
I do think you brought up that great point about the North Star. I do think, and again, when I do coaching, the number one thing is trying, and it's not always easy,
Yeah.
but trying to get clarity about what your future self looks like or
Yeah.
is, or who you are. Like that future, and clarity might be future self. It
Yeah.
might be values that matter to you,
Yeah.
or, kind of things that the type of person you want to be. But I think getting clarity around that is really important first step, and understanding like that can change. It's just for as far out as you can look. um you could even give yourself a time frame, like in a year or 6 months, this is kind of who I want to be.
Right.
Not just what I want to do, but who I want to be.
Yeah.
And I think once you have that clarity and you feel really, and you'll know when it's right, because you'll feel really excited about it. If
Yeah.
you're forcing it, it's not going to feel great. It's going to be uncomfortable, but like in a bad way versus uncomfortable in a good way.
Right.
I do think that that's a really great place to start.
Yeah.
And then you can start to, again, once you have the clarity of who you want to be, you can start to be that person to
Yeah.
like to immediately.
Yeah.
How would this person act? How would this person think? And you can kind of be your own little coach. I do find that it's really hard to, and I've gone through this myself, and many people I know have gone through this too. It's really hard to just stay in your head with it. So like
Yeah.
when you are trying to grow or develop or stretch yourself, I do recommend, having conversation, talking, or writing things out, because if you're just thinking about it, it's your conscious is in control, and our conscious doesn't help us when we're trying to do things that are different. So I
Yeah.
do think that, talking about who do I want to become, you might
Yeah.
not have the answer. It's okay, but talking through it might be helpful, or journaling, writing those things
Yeah.
down.
I'll really support that because I've shared this before. Like I spent a pretty long time growing, but not all happily. Like I've done talks about it, right? And like there was a long time where I felt pretty lost. Like I just didn't know why I wasn't happy. And it was only when I first of all talked to people, right? And candidly, it was like anywhere from a therapist to my wife to my family, like my support structure, right? And like I just had to talk that. I spent like a year talking it out, trying to figure it out. But once I finally defined like what actually feeds me, my growth, right? That's what when everything changed. That's when I started to take action. So it speaks to like A, you're talking about having a community, but B, also really defining things, right? And like getting an understand, like getting outside of being stuck in many ways, I think is a big piece of that. So I hear you there. And I couldn't agree more with that
Well, and
overall.
sometimes when you're stuck, if I ask someone like, what's your future self look like? Or you rated, you want to be a 5 and you're at a 2 right now
Yeah.
in clarity. And what does a 5 look like? They're like, I don't know. And again, it's that like, you might not have the answer, but it will come if
Yep.
you nurture it enough
Yep.
in the right ways.
Now, a part of this is also taking action, right? So I also see people who are stuck, who know they're not happy, who may even have an idea of like, I'd love to do this one day.
Yeah.
Day after day after day goes by and you just don't do anything about it. So like, what the heck do we do there, Shauna? Like, how do we get moving break the inertia?
This is my favorite, my absolute favorite topic, because it's the thing, again, we have control over. Most things we don't have, or a lot of things we don't have control over. It's a big reason why I joined SEI, was because it was all about how do we evolve our practice management to be more actionable. And I truly believe that taking the actions, no matter how small, as long as they're, somewhat aligned to your larger goals or vision, this is what gives you the momentum. So how do you start to take action? I think for people who just really struggle to take action, couple things. One is breaking it down in small enough pieces. We don't often do that. So I don't know, if you are looking, you want to get to know crypto, right? You want to become an expert in it. You got to set a very small goal. Maybe it's reading 5 minutes a day on crypto. Maybe it's just identifying the list of people or resources that are the right list for you. So like creating very, very small, manageable to-dos is one thing I think that can help. I like to have, personally, I have one, I call it a highlight. It's based on a book called Make Time. I think I actually have it behind me. I do. I have one highlight a day. I plan those out in advance. I actually have it. I was showing someone this morning. It's right here in my binder. I plan them out in advance. It's easy to do. I look at my calendar. I kind of know how I have to show up. And if I have a blank day, then I'm like, okay, absolutely, this is the thing I need to work on. So I have one highlight a day. It could be personal or professional. And it's the thing that I know when I wake up in the morning that it's like my number one thing to do.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about it because I want to do it because it's going to help me. And so I really focus on trying to make one small tangible action a day, take a step in the right direction. Now that in itself creates momentum. The more small steps you take, the more momentum and positive feedback you're getting. You start to see progress. It starts to become easier. You're building a habit of taking this small action. It doesn't need to be daily. It could be weekly, but I really think daily is important. But I think it just starts by kind of doing that. The second part of that is having an accountability partner. So when you commit to something, you actually write down and commit to something, and then you share it with somebody and you say, I'll commit to it by this date. Can you hold me accountable? And they say, yes. Your chances of accomplishing that thing or completing that thing increase to like 90-95%. So I think that's a really great way to get started.
That is a great point at the end there, because like we do a business plan every year for our business, and just the act of putting it out there keeps me so focused on like making sure we get things done, because otherwise I have to go to everybody and be like, yeah, that was all just talk and we didn't. It's like almost embarrassing, right? So like I'm very focused on, are we tracking with the plan? But you have to put it out there into the world as a commitment, right? Or else you don't get there overall.
It definitely helps.
Yeah. And I love the idea also of just shrinking things down. Like it can feel so hard to take that first step, right? And I think if you can shrink things down to like something bite-sized, something manageable, something to your point, like that might take 5 minutes, it is so much easier than thinking about the sum. It just freezes us overall. I think it's important to think about, I think you'd agree with this, what are the right actions to take, right? Yes. Because you have to like, we get eaten up all day in a good way by client work, right? Like I have a million fires to put out at any given time. What are the things I'm really doing to grow our business or to grow personally? Like, what's that one thing I can get after? So you have to prioritize stuff that you might not normally get to, right?
Absolutely. And maybe even acknowledging the things you're not going to get to. Like, you know what? Because of whatever this, I'm going to post less on LinkedIn. Like I've made those, I think figuring out how you can lower the bar in other areas, not just continuing to add. Can be really kind of like, I have like a minute room to breathe. I'm lowering the expectations on myself a little bit or on my team. So we're able to focus on the things that really matter.
Yeah. And I think positive, right? Like having some small wins is a lot bigger than like having some big failures because you never got around to things. So like to your point, I think we go back to the emotional side, like just that feeling, whatever's happening in our brain when like there's little tiny wins, it ladders up to a much bigger impact, and it keeps it like, that's what motivates us, right?
Totally.
So
We started, I have to share this because I completely agree in acknowledging the progress.
yeah.
We started in, maybe it was just because it's winter and it's dark. We have this easel in our hallway, which is right near the girls' rooms. And so every night we walk by this easel, and I put it there to bring up to the third floor, but it never made its way up there. And probably at this point, a month and a half ago, I started writing, today I'm grateful for. And
Hmm.
there's white markers, and every day now, just about every day, we all, like, no one asks us to do it. We just all kind of write whatever we're grateful for.
Hmm.
And a lot of it is things that we're proud of, the things that we either accomplished or that, we got to participate in. And it's so inspiring to see. There are certain days the board's not that full. There are certain days that it's overflowing, and
Hmm.
to see, to kind of celebrate together and be like thanks for, like, that was really sweet,
Yeah.
or wow, good job. Like, that has been kind of game changing part of
Yeah.
our night routine. That's been a lot of fun. And I'm really, it's like, it makes us feel really good about the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. That's nice that you do that, because we don't pat ourselves on the back enough, right? And like,
No,
you
we
are
don't.
making progress, like no matter, even if it felt like a waste of a day, like there is something good. And I love that, not just being intentional about growth, but like being intentional about recognizing the growth, and that something happened that was positive. Like, there's so much about just being in a positive mindset. And I think it sounds like you've created an intentional process, if we can use that in the terms of family, that like helps everyone just take a moment to acknowledge that, which is really, really nice. So
Yeah. It's been, we've kind of adopted it, and it's become one of, like, a really fun part of the night for us.
great. Well, that's a sign we sort of came full circle. So we start with parenting, we'll end with parenting, but let me end with this. Like, if you had one piece of advice for people, like, we already sort of did this, but if you could sum up, like, I want to start growing, I want my business to grow, what do they need to do next? What would you recommend?
I would say gain commitment, gain clear commitment about what that means to you today.
Yeah.
And then break down what you have to do, like, literally today, to start making progress towards that. And just, I'm giving you more than one, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
that clarity of that vision of what success looks like. And then, if you need help developing a plan, or you can develop yourself, just start taking very small steps toward it, and just don't stop. Just keep
Yeah.
taking step by step,
Yeah.
one step at a time.
And I'm going to give mine from this talk, which is surround yourself with people that are going to support your growth, right?
Yeah,
like
that matters.
at the end of the day, there's the people who are going to be accountable, who are going to be thought partners, who you can talk to, who are going to support you, who are going to keep you motivated. Like, you and I have talked about that, John. I often come to you just to bounce things around because I need that. But like, have your sounding boards, have your support structure, like, and even who you surround yourself personally, like that supports you professionally, right? Like,
Absolutely.
find people who can support you and fill you up. So
Yeah, we all need that extra help. And frankly, sometimes if I can't find, if I feel like I need some sort of support that I don't have in my group of people, I read books of people that I
yeah,
admire.
yeah,
Like, I think you could even, like, it doesn't need to be, it's certainly a tangible person's the best. And those people around you trust and that love you no matter
yeah,
what. But sometimes, mentorship happens even through podcasts and books, which,
yeah,
I found have been really impactful
yeah.
in my life.
Yeah, you have to find just things to stimulate you, right?
Yeah.
And just break you outside of whatever box you're in. So
Absolutely.
Shauna, thanks. A good first talk of substance. I had fun. We've done these kind of things before, but this was great as always.
This is
So
great.
appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much, Phil.